Not every day on the Appalachian Trail is filled with sunshine and majestic views. Every once in a while there are days where you just have to slug it out, and this is one of them. Hey everybody, it's Saturday, March 7th. It was alright last night. We were dry and warm. That tent worked very, very well. But getting dressed and getting packed up in the rain is always a chore and a challenge. But we're moving a little while now. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm back here.
Yeah, she is. And so we're doing pretty good. Yeah, it's always tough because everything goes in wet and heavy, you know, your tent and stuff. But we're doing pretty good. Yeah, it's always tough because everything goes in wet and, you know, your tent and stuff. Not sure how much video we'll be doing today. Trying to do between 10 and 16 depending on conditions. See how it goes. For some reason we have yet to figure out Tennessee does not provide privies, outhouses, near their shelter areas. Don't ask me why. It makes very little sense to me. Instead, they are kind enough to give you a long-handled shovel, which a lot of hikers just simply have come to call Tennessee privies. So, it's about 11:30, and weather's been holding off so far. So you gotta take what you get, appreciate it, and the trail's have some real nice sections, a couple of steep climbs, but all in all, pretty good. How you doing?
Okay.
Okay. So even in the rain, you gotta stop and really take advantage of these beautiful spots here. I hope this comes out. Of course, the downside of that is that's probably the rain that came down last night. About the only thing you can do on a day like this is try to have fun, I guess. So we saw pig snouts and we saw giant lizards lurking on the trail. But one thing that can always brighten up a day, peeps. As you can probably tell, our hike out of Lowe's Gap had set up for a low day, and it got worse. It was one thing to be wet. We were soaked from the rain and the fog and the driving drizzle. But then the temperatures began to just plummet. As we approached Hughes Gap at mile 378, we decided we would stop right here. We were able to follow down a trail onto a side trail and set up our tent. And in the morning, everything was frozen solid. We had come down, as you can see, off that trail and made our way back up this old fire road and found a place to set our tent. And in the morning, we found everything frozen solid. We had to actually chip our way open. Those are gloves that were wet, and they became a hammer. We had to use our warmth of our hand to loosen up the ice from all of our guy lines in order to fold up our tent. But worse, it was clear that the ankle problem that I had developed on Butt Mountain had become much, much worse. I could barely limp down that hill, and it was becoming troublesome, worrisome. And so we made arrangements. We went into our guide and we started making phone calls. And the night before, we were able to connect with Roan Mountain Bed and Breakfast. These were phenomenally nice people. We explained to them that we were safe for the night, but we would really appreciate if we could get off the trail in the morning, not only to thaw out, but to figure out what the heck was going on with my foot. In the morning, these wonderful people said they would meet us at 9 o'clock. We started hiking down the trail in order to connect with them at about 8:30, and at 8:45 they pulled up. Little kindnesses and things that people think about are perhaps some of the most important things we experience on the trail. And when somebody pulls up early on a day when you're frozen solid, literally, and then they get into a nice warm car, and sitting in that car are 2 hot cups of coffee waiting for you, which they just decided to bring as black coffee, which is our way of taking it, made for one of the best moments on the trail. They took us back to Roan Mountain, and there we would huddle down and try to repair everything that was frozen, and also try to figure out what was going wrong with my foot. You can't imagine the hospitality which we experienced here at Roan Mountain B&B. Ann and Steve, as we started to kid them, were our cousins in Tennessee that we never knew we had. The place here is just beautiful, steeped in history going back to the 1940s, where it must have been incredibly hard to build a life here on the side of the mountain. And if it is a matter of relax and enjoy, we relaxed and healed and enjoyed on this beautiful old farmhouse that was magnificently appointed inside. This was hardly suffering on the trail. We enjoyed every minute of it. But the best remedy for recovery was going to be time. Every day I just simply sat and kept my foot elevated and iced it and tried to be patient, which was a challenge. But we needed it if this trip was going to continue.